Kiss my forehead, grateful for another day.
Well, hello, Lizzy. How are you doing?
I am well. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, ladies and gents.
Thanks for joining us. For those who have been with us before, you kind of know we start a little bit before our 8 a.m. time. It's so hot to trot on this. We thank you for coming back. For those of you viewing us for the first time, we appreciate you being a part of us also. To give you a sense of what we're about, is Lizzy is recognized in her field as being an expert in wellness, I guess wholeness, mindfulness, and I get that intellectually, but I'm a left brain kind of guy, and I just don't get her pitch about yin and yang stuff. So I'm trying to make sense of it. So I'm asking her questions about things she'll blow out on me. She'll quote Einstein, like, who the heck is Einstein? So anyway, that being said, we do have micro themes for the period of time on a month average. And now it's not disarray, it's organizing. What is our topic for this block?
I think our topic is spring cleaning and decluttering and
There you go. There you go.
hopefully improving with the new spring, new growth.
Sounds intellectual, and we'll see how that goes. But for a commercial break here. First off, remember to show your comments. I need all the help I can get. This is a very, very sharp lady. Share us with other people. And we want to hear from you. Maybe we're not giving you enough. Maybe we're too much. If you have an idea we haven't addressed, we'd love to hear that. You can see us, if not live at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, you can see us after the fact on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We do ask, if you look at us through YouTube, please remember to sign into your Google account because we ask that you leave comments. We do all of those moments that come back to us, and we do respond because we really want to hear from you so it could be of more value for you. Anyway, the topic, and we don't rehearse this stuff, by the way, folks. This is not planned. That being the thing of the moment, I have to sometimes read what I'm saying because what I'm trying to express here of confusion is so alien to me, I can't help but to write it down. So we're talking about spring cleaning. And the theme, who doesn't know about that? We clean out the clutter. And the concept here is if you clean out the bad stuff to let the good stuff come in, meaning self-improvement. Now, my first thought is when I think of spring cleaning is, oh my gosh, where do I start? Number one and number two, but everything here is an important part of me. So how can I throw parts of me out? I can't even get far to the issue of bringing more stuff in. So Lizzy, help me out on this.
Well, I think that it's about removing some of the things that actually are not the best version of you.
But how do I know that, though? Everything's good. If I keep it, it's good. How do I know that?
Well, you got to think about what is it doing to you? What are you doing in your day, and what are your habits? I think about a lot of it is what are your habits, your daily habits that you do. And do you wake up in the morning, grab your phone the first thing, and start, diving into social media or the news or
Yeah, it's important to me.
yeah, but what is it? But actually, is it taking away from your productivity? Is it taking away from what your morning routine of maybe exercise? So I think it's about thinking about what are your patterns that are not helpful to you, and really the thinking patterns, the ones that we are not for us, the thoughts that we're not good enough, the thoughts that we stink at this, oh, we'll never be able to clean up that garage, there's no way, but take breaking it down uh and having some accountability, having some. I think it's great to have a buddy in any if you want to change a habit.
I hear that accountability. That's more than two syllables, so it's not. It's not that transparent to me. If it's a habit and it's been hanging with me, and I've been hanging with it, it must have been serving a purpose. So how do I again? We're back to that light switch, folks. Is how do I turn not a light switch on and say, oh, that's not good for me? I think again, it's a rheostat thing. So how do I develop awareness? Lizzy's thing is mindfulness, and I get the concept of it, but I don't get how you get to that. So how do I become aware enough to realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this at this moment? How does stuff like that happen?
Well, I think again, all these habits we have, they're good or bad or whatever they do. Like you said, they serve some kind of benefit. They're doing something for us. Let's say it's smoking or drinking or whatever, it's serving some benefit, whether it's to relieve stress or, if it's emotional, you stay in a relationship because you can't imagine how you could possibly get out of it. So, it's returning to the original you, the original person you is not a smoker. So it's not it's not someone who needs those things. It's just, so it's kind of, I think of it as kind of taking away those things that, to break our habits, we need to shift our identity into the more of our actual self. So you just need to like return to being a non-smoker, which is what you were before you were a smoker, say.
Well, I'm going to interrupt if I can. It brings up a story. I dated a girl once who was a smoker, and she knew I didn't like smoking. But she's who she is. I am who I am. And as long as it doesn't get in my clothes and my hair, I can tolerate it, I guess. But we went to a place in the city that, maybe the city hall or something. I forgot what we were trying to accomplish. And she had just lit a cigarette. And I says, hey, let's stop in here to accomplish what we had talked about 2 weeks ago while we're in the neighborhood, you might say. And I just started walking in the building, and she was slow to come in. And when she came in, I realized she had put her cigarette out. Well, there's a sign all over the place, no smoking. And we did our project, and then we left, and she was all in my face. Why did you go in there? You saw I just lit my cigarette. Why are you doing this to me? Much less her being mindful. And by the way, I was clueless. I was focused on the project. So I hear what you're saying, but don't people struggle with that in terms of making a distinction about what's to their benefit or not? And if they can't do that easily, how do they clean it?
Yeah, no, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. So they have to replace it with something else, especially with smoking. That's a very difficult one. And I know I was a smoker for a long time, to deal with anxiety. And the thing is, like, there's the benefits where, like, I would go outside with my friends to smoke. We would be like, have this little time together. But on the other hand, you're missing being say you're inside in a party or something. You're missing actually so many moments. And so when I stopped 20 years ago or whatever, it was like I had so much more time. And
excuse me. I got to interrupt at this point. You gave a good self presentation when you were smoking, and then when I stopped, there's that light switch again, folks. What was it that occurred to you that began moving you in the path to say, I need to stop smoking?
I mean, to be honest, what's interesting is it really was around the time that I started meditating it did actually kind of just fall away. It was kind of like, because I think it's because I got my stress and anxiety under control, that it was for me, it was a way of kind of just checking out because of the anxiety. So when I no longer had the anxiety, I no longer had that need to check out and, kind of numb out or disassociate from a situation. So that was for me. And I've heard that from many, many people, that when they do some type of either mindfulness training or meditation practice, that there's just become much more grounded in not needing something to feel okay. You start to feel okay in yourself.
Okay. Now, for those who may not know, Lizzy, I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory. It's not like she decided, let me take a mindfulness course to take this cigarette thing out of my head, my psyche. You would think it was going to be a spa vacation thing, your first contact with it. Is that how that worked?
Yes, I did. Unbeknownst to me, I was on the floor lying down the first hour, 90 minutes meditating. And I stood up and I was like, the most clear-headed I think I had ever been without anxiety. And I was like, how is this possible? How am I allowed to feel this way? And then I just became, I wanted more of that feeling because it was something that I had just well, again, forgotten, because I wasn't always like that. There, it came over time with things happening and me developing insecurity and anxiety as a result.
Yeah. I've never done a commercial plug in all the 69 events that we've done here, but I'm going to give a little bit of a nudge to make my point. So my thing is, it may not be so obvious, quote unquote, that I need to be mindful, or whatever that might mean. It may not be so obvious this is good for me or bad for me or not. But sometimes for those who may have concern, one of the things that Lizzy does is she stumbled across it without the intent of changing her behavior. So it may not be so methodical. It may be stumbling across. So even though I'm still not into it, my head self-syndrome, but for people who say, maybe I'm not happy where I am, perhaps that's a catalyst concept. And maybe this mindfulness thing might have some value. Is that a stretch?
I know that's not a stretch at all. No, it is not. I mean, especially now, the way we're living in a time that there's so many distractions, again, like that weeding of the garden. We are bombarded with distractions. And so if we don't put some things in place that keep us somewhat grounded and present in our lives, it's going to 10 years go by and we're actually missed it all. So I think that it's really more than ever important to not even, yes, I think I sit down every day and I do a meditation for only 20 minutes. I mean, some people sit much longer than I do, but I'm not even saying that. It's really becoming mindful in your living, in your everyday living. So actually being where you are and with all your senses, coming to your senses. I've said that before. So learning to just become aware of when you're actually not there, or when you're just with your family and you're on this device, and you're not present. And so starting to remove some of those distractions, so that you can just show up for your one beautiful, precious life. And again, breaking those patterns of thinking are also really something that I help people work on, and replacing them with, like, let's say they say, oh, I'm just always going to be fat. And this, instead of that, how about what if I could not be, unhealthy for the rest of my life? What if I could, start to do things that contribute to more health? And so, but you got to catch your thinking a lot of times, and then replace it with, what I like to say, what if, I make this change, and I try to do, I take the bad food out of my house, and I set myself up for success. So how do we set ourselves up for success in this spring, with this new season that we're having?
Well, I guess several points you made that kind of make sense to me. How do you set yourself up for success, or how do I do it in first person? Well, until you can set up, that's a spring cleaning concept. Until you can fill in success value, you have to get rid of the crap value, or pits, or whatever it may be. And I think to get to that, I still don't believe this mindfulness thing is intuitive. Like, I got to be a better person. I think some people fall into that, or work into that. I think maybe mindfulness to me is not that I'm aware of what needs to be. That I'm aware that maybe it could be better as a possibility.
It could be easier. It could be easier. You got to start where you are and accept where you are. But I mean, I'll just give you a quick example. We have time. My mother, it just blows my mind, because she just spent time in Florida, and she stayed in an apartment that the shower wasn't working. So she had to shower downstairs by the pool, in the outdoor shower that was her shower. And my entire life, I would have assumed that would just every day piss her off. That's what I would have thought. And she told me, I was like, how did you handle it? She's like, I just made a decision. Like, I'm not going to sweat the stuff anymore. I'm not going to sweat the small stuff anymore. And, and let go of that control that you don't have in that situation. Whether she could have left the apartment and come back to New York or New Jersey, but if she was going to stay there, she was going to stay there and have it with acceptance of what is, and not let the things that may be a slight annoyance affect her and affect her day and affect how she's enjoying, her time there. So I think a great example.
I hear that, and it brings to mind the concept that at this given moment where I am in life, I may not likely have awareness, but I do recall or think to myself something that was maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 weeks ago, was life-threatening in terms of earth shatter. My God, this is awful. The world's going to go poof in the moment. I can't remember half the stuff now. And so the point I'm making here is that this awareness of what seemed to be critically important, the example you gave just with your mother, that in hindsight, it wasn't such a big deal. And maybe to me, mindfulness does not have a solution, but realizing a possibility. Is that a concept that might make sense. A possibility of improvement, of better value.
I always believe in possibility for sure. Yeah, and we really need to get on it, because if we, again, not to be a downer, but I think, there's, the world is, lots of things are happening that are really, really terrible. And I mean, I think we all should carry in our hearts, the people of the Ukraine, especially the children right now, for sure, and do whatever we can to support them and provide them with essential, things that they need, that are just for survival. But again, we can only do that by one individually, trying to be the best version of ourselves, and getting help if we need to, figuring out what triggers us, what's a better way, what's a substitution I can put in so that I show up in a better state, and priming yourself for your peak state is another thing I'm really, really big on.
Well, you bring up a point on the world level, and we're not into that part of our program or dialogue purpose, but again, you have to clean out the rubble before you can bring in the value behind that. And it may come at a price. Oftentimes it does. But I guess that's a spring cleaning concept. It could be a lot of other types of cleaning. But I guess that's kind of what you're saying, to take us home here.
Yeah, and really to think about, these things that we have ancestrally been put in us, a lot of these limiting things. And so to honor your lineage by really evolving yourself is a great thought, I think, to step into for ourselves. We need to leave the next generation better and better and better. And so, honor your lineage by evolving it is how I would like to end.
Well, folks, I appreciate that, what you're saying. And folks, we hope that you either appreciate it, it makes sense, it doesn't make sense, whatever it may be. Hopefully you can leave a comment, a suggestion of topic of what we've said or not said, or said not to your delight, or really pleased you if it gave you insight. Remember to subscribe, number one. Remember to share this to other people out there, number two. And please come back along with everything that we have going. Yeah. I wish you a very, very good week to come into our next session next week this time.
Take good care, folks. Thank you.
So long.